لا يقتصر تأثير المعلمين على تعلم الطلبة فحسب، بل يؤثرون أيضاً في تطورهم الاجتماعي والعاطفي والمعرفي. كيف يرى المعلمون أنفسهم كجزء من النظام التعليمي ويتشاركون المسؤولية ويتواصلون بشكل فعال ويتعاونون ويتشاركون لصالح رفاهية الأطفال؟ دعونا نرحب بالمتحدثين في الجلسة الثالثة، والتي تديرها الدكتورة سناء طيبي، الأستاذة المشاركة في جامعة ولاية فلوريدا، الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. وعنوان هذه الجلسة: تعزيز الرفاه النفسي الاجتماعي من خلال القرائية.
Thank you, Dr. Amin, and the panelists for a great discussion panel, providing rich insights and different perspectives from policymakers. Dear attendees, our next session will be in English. Teachers not only influence students' learnings, but also their social, emotional, and cognitive development. How do educators see themselves as part of the larger connected system, sharing responsibility effectively, communicating, cooperating, and collaborating for the benefit of children's well-being? Fostering psychosocial well-being through literacy. The session will be moderated by Dr. Samia Kazi, Associate Professor, the School of Communication Science and Disorders, Faculty Affiliate at the Florida Center for Reading, Florida State University, USA. Welcome, Dr. Samia.
Thank you so much for this amazing introduction. I appreciate your efforts. يسعد صباح الجميع ومساءكم أينما كنتم. بس حبيت أصبح باللغة العربية أو أمسي. Thank you so much for the introduction. It's an honor to be part of this forum, which is timely, and I'm honored to to moderate this session. I would like to introduce my panelists first. Dr. Samia Kazi from Global Childhood Academy, Dr. Ashley Nimero from Save the Children, Dr. Aseel Al Shawareb from University of Petra, and Ms. Stacy Guidera from Cornerstone Foundation. The topic of today is fostering psychosocial well-being through literacy. The topic of psychosocial well-being is a very complex one, simply because of the psychology behind the psychosocial well-being. And there are a lot of factors that come into play when we talk about socio-emotional development and well-being. There are also huge individual differences. There are many parties involved. So it's not only the child or the youth, it's also the parents as well as the school and the community at large. I would like to open this session by forwarding my question first, based on topic sequencing, to Dr. Ashley from Save the Children. If you don't mind, Dr. Ashley, telling us about the psychosocial development of children, as well as some of the socio-emotional difficulties children or youth may be experiencing. I understand there's a wide range of differences. I understand there are factors involved and different levels or a spectrum of difficulty levels and different manifestations. Culture also play a role, but I would leave the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sana. Can you hear me well?
Yes, go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here with us today. It's an honor to be speaking on this panel. And as Dr. Sana said, my name is Dr. Ashley Nimero, and I am the acting director at the MHPSS Collaborative, which is hosted by Save the Children Denmark. And we really focus on lifting mental health and well-being for children and families, specifically in conflict-affected settings. And to answer your really important question, I just want to start by saying that the period between adolescence and youth is a time of substantial development. This period often comes with challenges, with extreme growth. Really, as you or as an adolescent child or youth are exploring who you are and how you relate to the world. How you relate to the world as a student, as a friend, also thinking about who you are as a possibly soon to be adult. And this is a time where you're really bridging two worlds between who am I as a child in the world, and who do I want to be as an adult, especially later in the adolescent years. And really, when we talk about psychosocial well-being of children and adolescents, it's important that we think of this period of development that children and adolescents are going through, and then also thinking about this period when a child has to face conflict and they're going through so much already, this huge developmental burst, and they're possibly displaced from their home. Maybe they're displaced from school. And I really believe that the children and the adolescents in the world today, we're seeing actually a huge mental health crisis that we didn't see possibly a decade ago. You know, right now, young people aged 10 to 19, anxiety and depression make up about 40% of the burden of disease. And adversities that many children and adolescents face in conflict settings is really based around loss of educational opportunities, which we know is so important to psychosocial development, loss of loved ones, social instability, interpersonal violence, early marriage, forced labors. And these are all risk factors that we know contribute to the development of mental health conditions. And we know that despite the need for care in conflict-affected settings, also settings throughout the world, that mental health and conditions among children and young people often go completely undetected and untreated, which is really due to disrupted care systems, weakened community fabric, and also really this important factor around stigma in seeking help. And I really believe that we as adults, as professionals, if we don't step up, we're really going to see this mental health crisis in children and adolescents continue to exacerbate. And as you said, of course, every child is going to experience difficulties and challenges during this period very different. And it's important to note, of course, that we really do understand the social determinants of well-being that affect children and adolescents. Mm-hmm. And we have to address those. So thank you so much, Dr. Sana.
Thank you so much. I mean, unfortunately, the time we have is not enough, but I would love to have you talk more and more. So hopefully I can come back. I just want to highlight the fact that the core socio-emotional competencies and skills we're talking about today has to do with self-awareness, social awareness, feeling responsible in decision-making, weighing in, for example, alternatives, being able to take such a decision, being able to express emotions and empathize with the other. Also, self-management is crucial, and expressing those emotions. Another very important socio-emotional factor is self-confidence as well as self-concept, and how motivated is the child. And of course, how attentive the child is. Attention, memory, and perception, all of these are cognitive factors. But once we're talking about socio-emotional competencies, we're talking about the social cognitive factors as well, not only the cognitive inside the child's brain, but also around the child, the reciprocal relationship. And I think this is a good segue to ask Dr. Samia to tell us about how does the child fit in this whole equation or process of caring for socio-emotional competencies and skills. Go ahead, Dr. Samia.
Thank you, Dr. Sana, and thank you, Dr. Ashley. Assalamu alaikum, and hello from Washington, D.C. So it's an honor to join you all. I'm excited to follow Dr. Ashley and some of my colleagues in advocating for psychosocial support. And we already heard a little bit about what it means, providing that continuum of love, care, and protection. And we know how important it is, not only for ourselves, but also for our children, and helping them develop mental health, emotional health, spiritual well-being, staying connected with their culture. And that ultimately leads to being able to design peaceful and prosperous societies. But looking at, just if we look at all of the stakeholders that were involved yesterday and today, everybody who's coming together to talk about the importance of children, how we can transform education, you probably notice that there's so many different stakeholders working together. And that's exactly what Dr. Sanat was referring to. It requires all of these different stakeholders to come together and to really focus on the child. If you look at this framework in front of you, this has been 16 years of my work and what we call systems-based work. I've been studying, I've been researching, advocating, consulting, implementing programs with all these different stakeholders who either have a direct or indirect influence on the child. And by the way, when we say indirect, it doesn't mean less impactful. So even, social workers, lawyers, judges, business owners, policymakers, everybody has an effect on children's development, all their development, including psychosocial development. And of course, educators, teachers, you're the pillar. We are the core. Even parents rely on educators as their point of reference, as their model. And so as well as educators, there are other stakeholders who are involved affecting children, families, friends, communities, health professionals. Law enforcement need to learn how to help support psychosocial development of children. Firefighters, people who work in museums, edutainment centers, government supervisors, even volunteer staff members that have occasional encounters. All of these people need to learn together about how to better serve children. And when I started my work 16 years ago, I thought that I had to become better. I thought I had to become more skilled or better skilled at at education, at advocacy. I got my doctorate degree. I published papers. I wrote books. Started even a radio show, and of course, staying sharp. Of course, it's important. Continually upskilling. Of course, it's important. But actually, what I realized is that it was more about learning how to work together. As humans, we know we're difficult, we're complex. We need to learn how to partner. We need to learn how to turn competition into collaboration in order to influence that complex web of a system that I showed you a minute ago. So how do we get started? We have to start with ourselves. You have to start with yourself, with you. And you may think that you are caring for yourself, you're doing self-care, but I think it's timely for us to continually re-examine what we're doing for our own health and well-being. And besides self-care, we need to also learn other skills. We heard from the session earlier today about how important it is for teachers to learn communication skills, for example. But I also believe that educators and teachers need to learn diplomacy skills. We need to learn negotiation skills. We need to start building these muscles that will make us better able to help people help themselves. So we'll be better able to support people who are experiencing stress, and thus to start the journey of developing psychosocial support. So I want to thank you for being with me here today. And I also want to invite you to learn more. Here are some resources. You can scan the QR code or take a picture for later. There's some resources that can help you start building your own health and well-being as a teacher. These are upskilling courses that are available on the Global Childhood Academy platform, which is a platform for upskilling educators as well as all the other stakeholders involved in serving children. Proudly, QRTAs also has courses on this upskilling platform, so you can scan this code to get to their courses. And then if you have any questions or want to learn more about what you said, you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. And back to you, Dr. Sanat. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. You touched on one of the crucial factors in the process of socio-emotional well-being, and that is the teacher. In fact, research shows clearly that teachers' socio-emotional competencies and well-being plays a crucial factor in children's socio-emotional well-being. There are several meta-analyses and studies that clearly showed more stressed teachers, like teachers with higher level of stress, have more children with mental health problems. And I would like to give the floor now to Dr. Aseel. Maybe she can provide us with her insight as to how can we deal with this? How can we help children and even adults with these issues? Go ahead, Dr. Aseel, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sana. Thank you, QRTA team. You are a fabulous team. Thank you, my colleague in this session. So my session will be about sperma model. And in fact, I start to examining this model after we return back to school after COVID. I start to find out some a model for well-being and positive psychology and models which support social support for students, for teachers, and for school in general.
Dr. Aseel, if you don't mind, raise up your voice a bit. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, I will. So I found a model, it's called PERMA model. This model is a psychological well-being model based on positive psychology and developed by Martin Seligman. And it's a component of 5 elements, which are P for positive emotions, E for engagement, and R for relationships, especially for positive relationships, and M for meaning, and A for accomplishment and achievement. In fact, this model is very
I'm really sorry, Dr. Aseel. I'm going to have to stop you now because no one is hearing anything, unfortunately. So maybe there's something wrong with your mic. I will give you a minute to fix it, or a few minutes, and then I'll come back to you for sure, because I'm very interested in learning from you about the PERMA model. I think it's going to be instrumental in learning about it. I'll come back to you. Sorry about that. I apologize for the audience about this technical issue. I would like to give the floor now to Ms. Stacy Guidera, who works for Cornerstone Foundation. And go ahead, Ms. Stacy, and we'll come back to Dr. Aseel. Dr. Aseel, try to fix your mic, please, or raise the volume or the audio. There might be something internally with your computer. We'll come back to you. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Stacy.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Sana. Hello, everyone. So nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on this panel. And please, Dr. Sana, tell me when it's time to move to the next session. Okay, great. So my name is Stacy Guidera. I'm based out of Rome. I'm presenting on behalf of disasterready.org, an initiative of the Cornerstone OnDemand Foundation. So for some of you that might not be familiar with Disaster Ready, just fairly quickly, it's an online portal that has over 1,500 online courses, videos, assessment-based certificate programs, and resources that are available in English, Arabic, French, Spanish, and other languages at no cost. And we host and create content with experts like yourselves, some on our panel, that are really designed for humanitarian and development professionals, volunteers, but as well as educators, child protection officers, and a really large range of people. And this year we've reached about 500,000 people worldwide, and a third of that is in the MENA region. So we're really excited about that outreach. And one of our signature programs as well is working with one of our programs is called Investing in Syrian Humanitarian Action, which is in collaboration with Mercy Corps as well as IRC based in Jordan, that we have developed a collection of custom courses for responders and communities in Syria and the region. So just to tell you a little bit about that, I am actually not an expert on mental health and psychosocial support, but I have worked many, many years in learning and technology. And one of the things I wanted to just talk about a little bit today was how all of this expertise from this panel, from you and the audience, organizations out there that have so much knowledge to share and awareness to raise about these topics, including mental health, psychosocial support, self-care, well-being, education emergencies, about getting those resources out there and how important it is now more than ever for digital learning to accompany either training that is available for staff, for communities, and transforming some of that really important information into job aids, videos, courses that people can access for free when they need it most. So making it more accessible to thousands. And with those resources, we've really seen a lot of organizations, NGOs, partner organizations using these tools in their work that also then has a huge benefit on programs working with adults, children, and youth.
I have a quick question,
yes.
Stacy, if I may. Sorry to
interrupt. Of course.
These courses and resources, are they tailored to fit cultural differences?
Yes, so a lot of them are developed either from really large UN organizations, INGOs, to community-based programs. So yes, they, especially the ones that we have created with the ISHA program, that they would be using actual case studies, training needs based on the actual region or the situation that we're trying to build out.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Dr. Aseel, did you resolve the problem?
Help. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let me share.
You have 5 minutes.
I'm just going to put in the chat more information for anyone that would like to access these courses. And also please feel free to contact me about any content development or hosting. So
thank you, Stacy.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sana. Thank you for QRTA team, fabulous team, and thank you, my colleague in this session. My session or my title about PERMA model and literacy. In fact, I start to examining about PERMA model after we came back to school after COVID-19. And I have to find out a model for teachers, for students, for parents, and for learning spaces in general to support social, emotional support for students and for all the elements at school. I found this model is related and it's full of elements are related to school life. PERMA model is a model built on positive psychology and development by Seligman. It's have 5 components: P for positive, E for engagement, and R for relation, and A for achievement and accomplishment. So these are 5 elements of PERMA can applied in the school environment and classes by teachers themselves and by students. And when the session come for literacy and well-being, I found that we can match by the elements of literacy by the elements of psychosocial and by the PERMA model elements. So these elements will match together and support students' learning, and we will, each element of literacy will be related to PERMA model and maybe build a well-being atmosphere at school and help teachers and help students to live their well-being and be more effective. And there are many details in this presentation. Maybe you will find it later. We can find this very appropriate model to build in each classes for literacy and for other teaching strategy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aseel. We really appreciate it. So the well-being of children in schools, as well as the well-being and the socio-emotional competencies of teachers are crucial in the process. The child is the product of the community surrounding it, interacting with each member in it, with their peers, siblings, parents, or teachers. And some of the practical solutions have to do with, for example, teacher preparation, pre-service teacher preparation. Rarely we see that pre-service teacher preparation programs include courses on behavior management, on socio-emotional development, and on conflict and resolution. These are important components that must be included, and this forum couldn't be more timely. And the topic of our session aligns very well with the topic of this forum, because we are heading towards a new trajectory in education. We have, the nature of the globalization and the refugee populations, as well as the pandemic, the COVID, all of these are added stresses and stressors. And of course, the socio-emotional aspect involves social aspects, and the COVID pandemic has deprived children from those opportunities to experience social integration at its ideal or its best situation. I would like to ask again Dr. Ashley to tell us a bit about the Save the Children research-based evidence interventions. What is it that they recommend based on research? Go ahead, Dr. Ashley.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sana. And to answer your question, I will quickly summarize 2 recently released journal articles that I worked on with colleagues, compiling learning on how to best support the mental health and psychosocial well-being of children, specifically in conflict settings. So in the first article, we developed through a consultation process core actions to enable a shift towards education that is responsive to children's mental health and psychosocial needs and learning requirements. As you so importantly said, and I often speak about, is that an education system is not just about supporting children to read and write, but it's actually supporting them to be active members in their communities and grow up to be active members and adults, and also they supporting their social and emotional needs is as important, I believe, as supporting their academic needs. And really both of them support each other. So the first core action was really about engaging communities, including children and youth, meaningfully and safely. And in designing inception and evaluation of any education programming. So really looking at what community structures already exist to ensure that youth, caregivers, teachers, and other education personnel and community members are informed about the importance of mental health and psychosocial programming, specifically within the education setting. Dr. Sana, you really mentioned this before, that when we talk about education settings, we're not just talking about children and teachers, we're talking about the whole community that surrounds children and the teachers and caregivers. And to reiterate that point, the second core action was really to work alongside caregivers to promote the well-being and learning of children, and early in the life course. So we know that caregivers are children's first teachers. And if caregivers have the tools and the skills to support children, that really sets them up for success when they enter the school system. It's also important to work with national education systems and really advocate for the inclusion of MHPSS programming, mental health and psychosocial support programming, And as you mentioned, both with in-service and pre-service training. So building upon and integrating it into existing mechanisms, programming, and national curricula. If we expect any types of changes to occur, we really need to think about what is the education that teachers are getting? What support are they receiving to be able to transform their classrooms into a space where children's mental health and well-being is put at parity with their academic learning. And also really to create national sector plans, that education response plans that clearly state how mental health and psychosocial support are integrated into the education system. And then really to advocate for, a multi-sectoral response, because it's so important when we're talking about an education system that also health systems are functioning, that social systems are functioning.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashley. I wish I could allow you more time, but we're running out of time because we need to allow time for questions as well. You have touched on some of the very important components in the process of intervention. And one of the things I would like to highlight is the fact that the teachers should be very vigilant about any changes in the child's psychology. Noticing a child being lonely or feeling isolated, not socially integrated with other kids, or feeling shy or sad, or having anxiety issues. And it could be manifested through biting nails, through pulling hair, through doing all sorts of things. If the teacher is really vigilant and does really intervene early on and do a lot of checkpoints assessment. So monitoring the child is crucial in the process of helping the child socio-emotionally being integrated and feeling well. Children sometimes externalize the problems rather than internalize. For example, they might put on an impulsive behavior, an aggressive behavior, acting out, angry, expressing anger issues, or they may internalize it by feeling very sad or by being very anxious. I also would like to add one important point, which is based on the very latest research a few months ago. They found out a famous team led by the researcher MacArthur in Australia. They found out, of course, we know that general anxiety and social anxiety is different from reading anxiety. But they found out that children who have poor reading difficulties or reading difficulties in general, they will have reading anxiety, and the cycle will become a vicious cycle. So intervening with the literacy component would be crucial, because if we help those children to read age appropriately or to the best they could from very early on, rather than waiting till they are in second grade or third grade, then we could be doing something positive to help them move forward, because their reading difficulties will reflect in their reading anxiety as well. So we want to make them feel more positive about this whole process of them believing in themselves, believing they can do it. In fact, the early childhood curriculum in many countries around the world include a component on socio-emotional well-being through literature for the children that has like several series. Some of those series include the title, I Can Do It, I Can Problem Solve, I Love My Achievements, things like that, to make the child feel proud. I'm going to stop here because I'm sure there will be some questions. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for my wonderful speakers, and please feel free to ask any questions you may have. We still have 3 minutes. I promised Ms. Rula Saeed to stick to time. Ms. Rula, how do we take the questions here? Do I access the Q&A? Well, does anyone want to ask anything? Okay, well, it has been a pleasure leading this panel, and I'm so thankful to everyone, and I'm more than happy The local society does play a crucial role as well. There was a question that popped up now. Of course, the local society, the extended family, the neighbors, the community at large, as I said in the beginning of the talk. So detecting problems from very early on. Children are more perceptive of tension, no matter how young their age is, than we all think. Many of us think. Children can perceive tension. Children can perceive if their parents are stressed or unhappy, and this does affect the well-being of the child. So one of the factors or مقومات النجاح would be to help succeed in the socio-emotional well-being is to have, for example, a confide, someone you can talk to, you can trust, to have a belief in oneself, to have successes and be proud of your successes. There are several courses, as Ms. Samia and Ms. Stacy pointed out, and so did also Ashley. So please feel free to access those. I wish we could have more time, but this is a very short time. These are very specific questions. Each context has its own peculiarities. So I cannot tell you a yes or no about the parents attending the classroom. If it is a parent open day, that's fine, but on a regular basis, I don't think that's good, because one of the key problems we see with children nowadays generation is the overprotection. Overprotecting the child deprives the child from the opportunity to err, to make mistakes. So we shouldn't be doing this consistently. Thank you again so much, and I wish you all the best. Thank you to my speakers as well.